Hello and welcome to this course on Introduction to Cybersecurity. I'm Slim Beeman and I'll be your instructor for this course. I've been involved in cybersecurity for over 13 years at all levels, attaining my Certified Information Systems Security Professional, or CISSP certification, all of the ISACA certifications, several of the CompTIA certifications, and my Project Management Professional or PMP certification. I have instructed over 1,000 students successfully with superb training organizations like Simplilearn, supporting students' efforts to understand and pursue a career in cybersecurity. Business information is an extremely valuable resource that must be protected. A business without adequate security will be attacked, but an overzealous security program can stifle business priorities, resulting in overall failure. Therefore, running an optimum and effective security program in an organization is of paramount importance. This requires total commitment from the top leadership, especially when cultural and programmatic changes are required. This course addresses the interdependency between business objectives and IT security. It focuses on the management of information security within an organization. Gaining knowledge and expertise in cybersecurity will benefit your organization in many ways. Organization IT-related risks are reduced. Appropriate information security governance is in place within the organization. Organization achieves significant value from information systems. And finally, compliance requirements of the organization are met. By the end of this course, you'll be able to assess the threats and vulnerabilities that every information system faces and resolve it using any mitigation method. You'll be able to deal with threats using secure enterprise architecture. You'll be able to enable business security awareness using strategic management and resource optimization. And finally, you'll be able to create an effective defense in cyber-related attacks and threats with the help of incident response and management. This course includes the following lessons. In Lesson 1, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. In Lesson 2, we're going to talk about secure enterprise architecture. 3, we'll talk about information system governance and risk assessment. And finally, in Lesson 4, incident management. The assessment at the end of this course contains 20 questions and is intended to test the knowledge you have gained from the course. You'll be given 3 attempts to pass the assessment. Let's begin. Fundamentals of cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity refers to a set of techniques used to protect the integrity of networks, programs, and data from attack, damage, and unauthorized access. It can also be defined as the protection of information assets by addressing threats to information processed, stored, and transported by inter-networked information systems. But why do we do cybersecurity? Well, it's due to technological advancement. Rate of cybercrime is increasing. Due to most of the trade and business online these days, there is an ever-increasing demand to protect this data. The presence of regional and global crime syndicates creates social engineering and ransomware concerns through stolen credentials and monies. Cyber armies, whether through nation-state actors or globally based large threat actors, have considerable resources and time to support vast techniques and procedures. And finally, financial frauds target banks, credit card industries, and retail chains to capitalize on large amounts of personal and financial data. Information security often refers to the processes and tools designed and deployed to protect sensitive business information from modification, disruption, destruction, and inspection. Cybersecurity, however, refers to a set of techniques used to protect the integrity of networks, programs, and data from attack, damage, or unauthorized access. Again, information security deals with information, regardless of its format. It encompasses paper documents, digital and intellectual property in people's mind, or verbal or visual communication. Cybersecurity is a component of information security. Here's some statistics from recent trends that makes cybersecurity more important. During the first 6 months of 2018, more than 25 million records were compromised or exposed every single day. 300 billion passwords are right now in existence or going to be in existence by 2020. Cybercrime is expected to cost $6 trillion by 2021. Over 24,000 malicious mobile apps are blocked daily. Healthcare industry ransomware attacks will be quadrupling over the coming years. More than 60% of fraud originates from mobile devices. Personal data is cheap. It sells for as little as 20 cents. 90% of hackers use encryption. Factors that affect cybersecurity. There are two main areas: technology and business plans and general business deployment or environment. Under technology, we have platforms and tools that are used. Network connectivity, level of IT complexity, new or emerging security tools, and the operational support for security. On the business side, we have the nature of business. We have the business's risk tolerance. We have industry trends or industrial trends. We have mergers, acquisitions, and partnerships that affect. And finally, outsourcing service or providers. So let's talk about the CIA triad. C, confidentiality. The principle of confidentiality asserts that information and functions can be assessed only by those who are authorized or third parties. Example would be military secrets. Integrity, or I. The principle integrity asserts that the information and functions can be added, removed, or altered only by authorized people and processes. And finally, availability. The principle of availability asserts that the system, the functions, and the data must be available on demand according to the agreed upon parameters based on levels of service. So CIA. This triad is the basis for creating a holistic security plan to protect all of your organization's critical and sensitive assets. Introduction to governance, risk management, and compliance. Governance, risk management, and compliance of every organization is different and varies based on the type of organization. It depends on organization mission, size, industry, culture, and legal regulations. The ultimate responsibility of GRC program is to protect their assets and operations, including their IT infrastructure and information. Governance. It is the responsibility of the board of directors and senior management of the organization. A governance program has several goals: provide strategic direction, ensure that objectives are achieved, ascertain whether risk is being managed appropriately, verify that the organization's resources are being used responsibly. Under risk management, it is the process by which the organization manages risk to acceptable levels. Risk management requires the development and implementation of internal controls to manage and mitigate risk throughout the organization, including financial and investment risk, physical risk, and finally, cyber risk. And let's talk about compliance. It is the act of adhering to and the ability to demonstrate adherence to mandated requirements defined by laws and regulations. It also includes voluntary requirements resulting from contractual obligations and internal policies. Success of cybersecurity is ultimately the responsibility of the board of directors. The tone at the top must be conducive to effective security governance. Some of these roles are: from the top, board of directors, whether the CEO, president, or board members, must establish and adopt an overall security posture for the business. The executive committee is comprised of your executive leadership team, that supports all functional areas of the business. For example, HR, marketing, finance, CIO. Your security management team is typically your Chief Information Security Officer or CISO, or Information Systems Security Manager or ISM, and will ensure information security strategy and objectives meet the overall business strategy and objectives. Finally, we have toward the bottom the cybersecurity practitioners. These cybersecurity experts are the ones who monitor and support the security of the business's information system. So let's look at approaches to cybersecurity. You can have three different ways. Compliance based on security. This approach relies on regulations or standards to determine the security implementation. Risk-based cybersecurity. This approach relies on identifying the unique risk a particular organization faces and designing and implementing security controls to address the risks that you find. An ad hoc approach simply implements security with no particular rationale or criteria. So some of the key terms. Vulnerability is a cybersecurity term that refers to a flaw in a system that can leave it open to attack. A threat is something that may or may not happen, but has the potential to cause serious damage. Threats can lead to attacks on computer systems, networks, and much more. Threat agent is used to indicate an individual or group that can manifest a threat. Risk, the potential for loss, damage, or destruction of an asset as a result of a threat exploiting a vulnerability. Countermeasure or control is an action, device, procedure, or technique that reduces a threat, a vulnerability, or an attack by eliminating or preventing it, by minimizing the harm it can cause, or by discovering and reporting it so that corrective action can be taken. Assets, something of either tangible or intangible that is worth protecting, including people, information, infrastructure, finance, and reputation. Residual risk, even after all safeguards are in place, there will always be residual risk, defined as remaining risk after management has implemented risk mitigation or implemented their risk response. Inherent risk, the risk level or exposure without taking into account the actions that management has taken or will take. Correlation among different basic terms of cybersecurity. If a company has anti-malware software but does not keep its signatures up to date, this is considered a vulnerability. The threat is that a virus will show up in that environment and disrupt productivity. The company cannot eliminate the threat agent, but it can protect itself against this agent from exploiting vulnerabilities within the environment. Applying the right countermeasures or controls can eliminate the vulnerability and exposure and thus reduce the risk. Threat actors, attacks, and mitigation. A threat actor or malicious actor is a person or entity that is responsible for an event or incident that impacts or has the potential to impact the safety or security of another entity. Threat actor categories: script kiddies, hacktivists, organized crime, nation states, APT, advanced persistent threats, insiders, and competitors. Main threats to an organization are things you have to consider: natural environmental threats, supply system threats, man-made threats, social or political threats. Malware is any software that is intentionally designed to cause damage to a computer, a server, a client, or computer network. A malware is a set of instructions that run on your computer and make your system do something that an attacker wants it to do. Malware types can be in the form of worms, viruses, trojans, logic bombs, adware, rootkits, spyware, ransomware, and backdoors. And these can impact the information system by stealing protected data that you have, deleting documents that you have that maybe are critical, performing click fraud where it's monitoring your clicking on the keyboard or in that type of frame, and it's capturing that information. Stealing software serial numbers, for example, if I buy software or if I have software, if I steal the serial numbers, I may be able to replicate the software or claim that the software is mine. And then finally, adding software not approved by a user and using your computer as a relay for other attacks. For example, a botnet. Worms are self-replicating pieces of code that attempt to penetrate networks and computer systems. Once a penetration occurs, the worm will create a new copy of itself on the penetrated system. A virus is a piece of a malicious code that replicates by attaching itself to another piece of executable code. Trojan horse is a piece of software that appears to do one thing but hides some other functionality. Spyware, it is malware that can be put in someone's computer to secretly gather information about the user and relay it to advertisers, to other interested parties. It can get in a computer as software virus or as the result of installing a new program. Adware, it is a type of malware that bombards you with endless ads and pop-ups windows that could be potentially dangerous for your device. It is a type of software that shows ads. Most adware are safe, but some can gather your personal information. Rootkits are a form of malware that is specifically designed to modify the operation of the operating system in some fashion to facilitate non-standard functionality. A backdoor. This refers to a program or programs that attackers have installed after gaining unauthorized access to a system to ensure that they can continue to have unrestricted access to the system, even if their initial access method is discovered or blocked. Logic bombs are malicious code objects that infect a system and lie dormant until they are triggered by the occurrence of one or more conditions such as time, program launch, website logon, and so on. Ransomware. This is a type of malware that attempts to extort money from the computer user by infecting and taking control of a victim's machine or files or documents stored on it. How does it spread? It usually installed when you open malicious email attachment or click a malicious link in an email, an instant message, or even if you visit a malicious website. How do you prevent this? Keep all of the software on your computer up to date. Keep your firewall turned on. Don't open spam messages or click links on suspicious websites. Let's talk about different malware attacks. Coveter. It's a Trojan, which has been observed acting as click fraud malware or ransomware downloader. Some of you may have heard of WannaCry. It's a ransomware worm that encrypts your files and asks for ransom or money in the form of cryptocurrency. Zeus, or Zbot, is a modular banking Trojan which uses keystroke logging to compromise victims' credentials when the user visits a banking website. Ghost, it's a remote access Trojan used to control infected endpoints. Ghost is dropped by other malware to create a backdoor into the device, allowing an attacker to fully control the infected device. And finally, Mirai is a malware botnet known to compromise the Internet of Things, or IoT, devices in order to conduct a large-scale distributed denial of service, or DDoS, attack. Mirai is dropped after an exploit has allowed the attacker to gain access to the machine. Let's talk about a denial of service attack. It can exploit a known vulnerability in a specific application or operating system, or they can attack features or weaknesses in specific protocols or services. The purpose of a denial attack service can be simply to prevent access to the target system, or the attack can be used in conjunction with other actions to gain unauthorized access to a computer or network. This can be accomplished by crashing the system, taking it offline, or by sending so many requests that the machine is simply overwhelmed. Let's talk about a distributed denial of service. A DOS attack employs multiple attacking systems, is known as a distributed denial of service. The goal of a distributed denial of service attack is also to deny the use or access to a specific service or system. A network of attack agents, sometimes called zombies, is created by the attacker to launch the attack. Several recent denial of service or distributed denial of service attacks. We had GitHub on February 28th of 2018. GitHub, a popular developer platform, was hit with a sudden onslaught of traffic that clocked in at 1.3 terabits per second. If that sounds a lot, it is. That's because the traffic not only was so massive, it was record-breaking. It shut everything down. The pop vote, DDoS, was carried out in 2014 and targeted the Hong Kong-based grassroots movement known as Occupy Central. The movement was campaigning for a more democratic voting system. Another one in 2014, security provider and content delivery network Cloudflare was slammed by approximately 400 gigabits per second of traffic. The attack was directed at a single Cloudflare computer and targeted servers in Europe and was launched with the help of a vulnerability in the Network Time Protocol, or NTP, for computer clock synchronization. Let's talk a little bit about application attacks. An application layer attack targets computers by deliberately causing a fault in a computer's operating system or applications. This results in the attacker gaining the ability to bypass normal access controls. The application layer, or layer 7, attacks refer to a type of malicious behavior designed to target the top layer of that OSI model. Different types of application layer attacks are, for example, cross-site scripting, buffer overflow, denial of service, or a distributed denial of service. A SQL injection, domain name system or DNS spoofing, domain hijacking. Software codes and security. There's no doubt that a developer's programming practices play a massive role in the security of software, apps, databases, and all other electronic systems. This places a major responsibility on programmers everywhere to write safe, high-quality code as often as possible. Now, the original code, or otherwise known as source code, is a set of instructions and statements written by the programmer using a computer programming language. Code review is a systematic examination, or sometimes referred to as a peer review, of computer source code. It is intended to find mistakes overlooked in the initial development phase, improving the overall quality of the software. Several testing methods that are used. Static testing. This evaluates the security of software without running it. Dynamic testing. This evaluates the security of the software in a runtime environment and is often the only option for organizations deploying applications by someone else. Here's some recent security attacks. The Sachs, Lord & Taylor. Near the end of March, security firm Gemini Adversary came across an announcement from the Joker Stash hacking syndicate offering 5 million stolen credit and debit cards up for sale. On May 31st, Ticketfly suffered an attack that resulted in the concert and sporting event ticketing website being vandalized, taken down, and disrupted for a week. Can you imagine how much that might cost? Russian hackers have made millions selling credit card details stolen from almost 245,000 British Airways customers during a major cyber attack in August, according to experts. Now let's talk a little bit about social engineering. It is the art of manipulating people so they give up confidential information and violate the security principle. Social engineering can be broken down into many categories. Phishing is similar to fishing in a lake, attempt to steal your personal information. They send out emails that appear to come from legitimate websites. Spear phishing is a little bit different. It's a variation on phishing in which hackers send emails to a group of people with specific common characteristics or other identifiers. Whale phishing is a term used to describe a phishing attack that is specifically aimed at the wealthy, the powerful, or prominent individuals. Let's talk about some recent social engineering attacks. Several people lost thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency after the Ethereum Classic website was hacked back in 2017. Using social engineering, hackers impersonated the owner of Classic Ether wallet, gained access to the domain registry, and then redirected the domain to their own server. Criminals extracted Ethereum cryptocurrency from the victims after entering a code on the website that allowed them to view private keys that were then used for transactions. Security policies and procedures. Security Management Plan, or SMP, should use a top-down approach. Senior management is responsible for initiating and defining policies from the top down. Middle management is responsible for releasing these standards, baselines, guidelines in relation to the policy that was established by the senior management. The operations management and IT teams then implement the controls that were defined above. Finally, the end users must comply with all the functions of the organization. Everything should have the approval from senior management before we start to engage. Let's talk about security management plan types. The strategic plan. This is a long-term plan. It defines the organization's security posture. It should be useful for at least 5 years and renewed annually. It helps understand the security function and make sure that it aligns with business. It should include the risk assessment. Tactical plan. This is a midterm plan developed to provide more detailed goals, usually for a year or two. It's more technology-oriented. Finally, at the lowest level, the operational plan. This is a short-term plan, very highly detailed. It must be updated often, monthly, quarterly. It spells out how to accomplish the various goals. The security policy is a strategic plan for implementing security. It defines the scope of security needed for the organization. It defines the main security objectives and outlines the security framework. It identifies major functional areas of data processing. It broadly outlines the security goals and practices that should be employed. It is used to assign responsibilities, define roles, specify audit requirements, outline enforcement processes, indicate compliance requirements, and finally define acceptable risk levels. Organizational policy. Issue specific policy and system specific policy. Under organizational security, we may look at focusing on issues relevant to every aspect of the organization. Under issue specific policy, we'll look at focusing on specific service, department, function that is distinct from the organization as a whole. And finally, system-specific policies will focus on the individual systems. The security policy framework. Baselines. Baselines define the minimum level of security that every system must meet. They are system-specific, and they establish the common secure state. Guidelines. They offer recommendations on implementation. They serve as an operating guide. They are flexible. They can be customized for each unique system. Procedures. These are the final element of the formalized security policy structure. These are detailed, step-by-step documents that describe actions necessary to implement the security mandates, system and software specific, and the purpose that it is used to ensure integrity of the business process. Standards. Standards define the compulsory requirements. They provide a course of action for uniform deployment of technology. These are tactical documents. Due care and due diligence. Two different terms. You need to make sure you understand the difference between the two of them. Due care, taking responsible care in protecting the organization. It is a legal term. It pertains to the legal duty of the organization. Lack of due care is considered negligence. Due diligence is practicing the activities that maintain the due care effort. It pertains to the best practices that a company should follow. It might not be legally liable.